This is Sienna inviting you to join me tonight as we navigate through the seen and the unseen, explore external and internal realities, expose on-world and off-world agendas, discover a path to joy and freedom. Now, join me as we illuminate the Shadowland and reclaim our birthright as free and sovereign beings.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Illuminating the Shadowland. I'm here with an extraordinary individual, an author and a researcher, David Griffin. Tonight's show is called Secrets of the Enslaver Hierarchy. David writes, this is according to his website, my primary role for many, many lifetimes has been as an intelligence officer working for the light side. My primary function has been investigation and exposure of the enslaver operations and methods, not only on this planet, but on others as well. One of my main projects for this lifetime has been the preparation of an intelligence briefing for the peoples of Earth. Welcome to Illuminating the Shadowland, David.
Thank you, Sienna. It's nice to be here again.
Yes, I just want everyone. Yes, what is this? Take 5. We've been, just so you all know, it makes me really know that David is the real deal. I've never had this much trouble with anybody. We have had such intense interference. So just so you know, if we have run into any challenges at all, hang in there. We are going to attempt this and get this man's extraordinary first-hand information to you. Let's dive right into this, David. I have a whole bunch of questions. Your material is so extraordinary, in my opinion. So, question numero uno, who are we? Who are we and why can't we remember?
All right. We are, all of us, immortal spiritual beings who are living inside of biological bodies. And this would be typically what we call a lifetime. And a being typically interiorizes into a body a short time before birth and will live out a lifetime in that body. And then death is the point at which, of course, you exteriorize from the body again, separate from it. And there has been an operation going here on Earth for a very, very long time to, I guess, in a sense, recycle it. Typically, what has happened here for a very long time is there's a period of time right in between when a person dies, leaves their last body, and is reborn, interiorizes into the next body. There's a gap of time right in there in between, which we refer to as the between lives area. And typically, what has happened is that people get put through this program to essentially wipe out their memories. Actually, what gets happened is the memories get heavily suppressed so that they can't remember. And then they get, put back through again. So it's almost like you're on a hamster wheel. You're never really getting anywhere. You can't remember the past, and so that's the program that's been running here.
Well, that is horrendous. So, can I ask you just a couple quick questions about that? We're going to return to that later in this 2-part show. But are you saying basically then that karma, the whole thing about karma and the Hall of Records, the Akashic Records, and our life review and going to the light, that there's a whole false agenda that we're getting cycled in that's posing as the real deal, and where we're really just being used, vampirized as energetic slaves for this
I don't know that I would phrase it that way, but it's the program is basically prisoner control.
Prison control.
Yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to. Earth is part of a spiritual prison system, and in order to maintain control of the populace, people's memories get wiped out, and then they go back and live a brand new lifetime, and they know nothing of what they were, who they were before, and where they came from, and what they were doing. And, you've heard this old expression, well, you know, you only live one life. Well, that's pretty far from the truth, actually. But it basically boils down to keeping the beings who are here trapped here and oblivious as to what's going on.
Well, oblivious certainly sums up a lot of what I see is going on. Okay, I have just had such a huge reaction to that, but we will put that on hold because I know that you had advised me that this subject is so volatile it can cause a lot of charge in people, and I know it's happened to me actually. We've got knocked off air, I've got knocked out of my thinking process numerous times, I've had headaches in my numerous encounters with you that were clearly involved in this implanting and imprinting coming to consciousness, but so we don't want our listeners to fall asleep here right out of the gate. I know this is incredibly important information, everyone, and we will get to it. This is a two-part series. Hang with us here.
Let me throw in just a little bit on that real quick, just so people know what you're talking about.
Okay.
This operation involves the use of very, very heavy force against the person, and it suppresses their awareness and suppresses their mental processes, etc. So what I had previously advised Sienna that we need to be careful about talking about this area, because when you start talking about it and you put people's attention on the area, it starts turning this stuff on. It starts to be stimulating. So that's why I had advised we sort of wait till the end before we get into any of the great detail on it.
Not to say that we're not going to make available somehow or another David's work, because as we know here at Shadowland Voyagers, it doesn't matter what level of truth we're looking at, the truth does set us free. And yet this man's information is so profound, it's deeply troubling, but it's also greatly liberating. But we've been in dialogue for several weeks now, and he has advised me that we have to go in steps because of the heavy programming from the implanting we all carry that this can evoke. And so I respect that. So we'll stay on point here, David. What has your mission been here? Can you share with us some of the key points in the enslaver hierarchy that we are currently impacted by? Those are two separate questions, but they're kind of linked together. However you want to take that, David.
Okay. Well, I've been on this particular mission now for approximately 80 billion years. And most people will notice right away that that's a bit beyond the lifespan of this particular universe, and that's correct. This particular universe we're in right now, by comparison, is sort of a little pipsqueak universe. It's only about 15 billion years old. But trust me, we've all been around for a very, very long time. And so the origins of this particular mission I'm on right now go back approximately 80 billion years. So what I've been doing has been following the enslaver hierarchy down the chain to where we are now. Now, let me back up a little bit and sort of explain that term. Okay. There is, to put this very simply, there's basically two main groups in operation here. On the one hand, you have the enslavers. And I use that term as sort of a very broad, generic term And it basically means somebody whose primary purpose is to suppress, dominate, and enslave others. And there's very specific personality characteristics and so forth that go along with that. But that is their primary driving force. That's what they live for. Their entire purpose for doing anything is to gain power over others so that they can suppress them, push them down, and dominate them. And then, of course, there's the rest of us. And I myself have been part of another team, which could be called the Free Beings team. And our purpose is basically to undo what the enslavers have done and to bring beings back up the scale again. So there's been this sort of struggle going on for quite a while, even before the 80 billion year mark, by the way. And so one of my purposes on this mission has been to sort of track this enslaver hierarchy. There's this hidden hierarchy, a command chain, but it forms essentially a pyramidal shape. You've got one guy at the top, and then he issues orders to, his immediates, and then they issue orders down and so forth. So there's this big, elaborate hierarchy of command and control. And so I've been sort of following it down the line from the top down and tracking where it goes and what some of the methods they've been using are, such as implanting. And maybe I should get into that a little bit too.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
What are they doing?
Okay. Well, I put a video up. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find it. I've only got maybe five videos up there.
Okay, what is your YouTube channel? Just tell them right now while we're on point.
I think it's just Upward Vector. But if you can find it on my
Vector. Okay, you're a little bit muddled. Not bad.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure they got that. Upward Vector.
I'm pretty sure that's it. You can actually find all of my videos are on my site.
And that is upwardvectorpubs.com.
Which is short for Upward Vector Publishing.
Okay. All right. Back to it. What are they doing? And yeah.
So implanting basically is a method of forcibly installing thoughts, ideas, compulsions, false memories, false viewpoints, etc. Essentially, it amounts to mind control. I think most people would probably understand that term. But it's a method whereby these things are installed or implanted in the person's mind. And it involves a great deal of force, energy, force, etc. I've got one video that I made. I think it's called Creating Mind-Controlled Assets. I think that's what it's called. But it goes into the methods that are used when a person is in a body, which essentially would be drugs, pain drugs, hypnosis, etc. A lot of times electroshocking is used. MK Ultra, which was developed by the CIA back in the late 40s, early 50s, that was sort of the genesis of it here as far as our own military and intelligence community goes. But
David, are you saying that these that this hierarchy, that this enslaver hierarchy that is galactic, it's not part of this universe, but they're actually interfacing consciously with governments, with CIA? Is that what you're saying here?
Well, if you go, well, okay, that's sort of a mixed thing. Yes, and there's an article on my website called Levels of the Game, and that
Levels
sort
of the game.
Levels of the Game, and that sort of gives you an overview of the enslaver hierarchy here in this universe. It's a very generalized, simplistic view, but it essentially shows that Earth is sitting at the bottom of an enslaver hierarchy. And so up above Earth, you have a sector level, which would be this particular sector of the universe, or the sector of the galaxy that we're in right now. And up above the sector level, you get up to a galactic level, and there's a galactic level organization. But coming on down that chain, that command line, yes, it does go right into the top of the governmental level. So the governmental level here on Earth is sitting pretty close to the bottom of this enslaver command channel, command line.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to take you off of your train of thought there, because you were talking about the specific ways that we are being manipulated. And
well, I was. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I was talking about the implanting.
Right.
Okay.
So this implanting is happening at the bottom of the chain, at the government level?
Happens at all the levels.
It happens at all the levels. This is their favorite game, huh? Is implanting us with
it's their primary tool for control.
Their primary tool is implantation, okay?
Yeah.
And once this happens, since most of us are largely unaware it's happening, then we end up carrying out their agendas. You talk about this in spiritual warfare as
well. Let me give you a real life example, which may help to explain. Okay. Now, for example, last lifetime, I was still here on Earth last lifetime, and I was in the military. I've had quite a few military type lifetimes, and so I began as a pilot, and then I went into military intelligence. And one of my how do I explain this? One of the things that I've been doing, as I've been following this enslaver command line down through the levels, is I've been managing to get myself into very critical places and very critical points in the game. There's this huge game that's being played here in this universe right now that we're a part of. Most people are completely oblivious that they're even a part of this game. And that's because of all of the implanting that suppresses our awareness and suppresses our memory and so forth. So last lifetime, I was involved in military intelligence for the U.S. government, and I was managed to be at Roswell before all of this activity occurred, the Roswell incident. July 47. Now, after that, in the 50s, that was, well, there's a lot we could talk about just about that area, but anyway, in the 50s.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice to know what you were doing there now that you laid out that whole scene for us. Can you tell us anything about what you were doing there before the Roswell incident happened?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if you can't, I understand, but
No, actually, I can because I just mentioned it on another. I just went into a bit of detail on that on another radio show that's actually due to air in a couple of days. But let me finish this other thought first.
Okay.
So in the 50s, then I ended up undergoing. This is when they were developing MK Ultra. And I think, as a matter of fact, one of the big pushes for MK Ultra, I mean, looking back now, I think there was a massive counterintelligence program developed to suppress what really went on there at Roswell, because there was a lot that went on there that most people are unaware of still. So there was this massive counterintelligence operation to cover up that whole thing, and part of that involved suppressing the memories of the people who had been involved in the recovery operations and, seeing the bodies and so forth. And so I ended up undergoing a lot of implanting last lifetime just to suppress my memories of all of that. And then I ended up getting even more at the end of last lifetime to suppress my memories of being in the military and intelligence, and then more, between lives. So I ended up getting a heck of a lot of implanting to suppress my memories of that entire area. And then at the very beginning of this lifetime, I got some implanting to create my current identity, if you want to call it that, of David Griffin. So, everything that I had done before was very, very heavily suppressed, so that I wouldn't remember it. My identity would be forgotten and so forth. And then I remember getting some specific programming, implanting, to create my current identity. And there was like a, certain personality traits or whatever.
So
that went along
was that a personality or redirect so that you were not likely to access the deeper truths as well?
Yeah, but it's sort of, you get the memory wipe, which heavily suppresses all your memories, and it makes it seem like all of your memories are gone. That's essentially what it does. And then I got some fresh implanting on top of that to create this new identity, like, you are now, this is who you are going to be. This is going to be your lifetime. This is what you're going to do for this lifetime, et cetera. It basically gave me goals to pursue and so forth. So that was the programming to create this current identity of David Griffin that goes along with my current body. Now, fortunately, however, I way back, back about 80 billion years or so, I knew all of this was coming ahead of time. So there were certain things that I did way back then while I was still operating at a much higher level to prepare for this time period. And one of those was that one of the things that I did was that our minds are actually our own creation. And for most people, they're completely unaware that they are the author of their own mind, but the mind is an energetic creation, and it's being created moment by moment. It's a continuous creation process. So since you are creating it moment by moment, it of course gets dragged with you wherever you go, lifetime to lifetime to lifetime, because you're creating it constantly without realizing it. It normally goes on below the level of conscious awareness, but it's still there. It's this massive energetic construction. So,
but we're also getting all these thoughts and
yes.
A lot of the AI, this artificial intelligence mind field, is constantly programming our mind. And then the New Age movement says, well, just, don't have a mind at all. Just be here now. I mean, there's a lot of programs trying to impact our mind. Yes. And we may be creating it, but many times we're fairly oblivious of how it's being created or where the access point to self-generate that creation can be from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, it's become an unknowing creation. We're creating it on an unknowing basis, moment by moment. And so, yeah, I'll tell you, it takes a heck of a lot of work. It's taken me a heck of a lot of work to get to where I am, and I've still got a long ways to go, even still.
Yeah, but the work is a wonderful work. It's the only work there is to do, because if we are about our sovereignty and taking back, approaching any kind of level of freedom, then that work, to me, is the most joyous work one could ever engage in, no matter how tedious. And this seems to be a lot of the implanting, that nobody wants to do that work, that work has been programmed as being very offensive. We've talked about it, shadow work here, but revealing whatever the truth is that is enslaving us is all a part of the unslaving process of the shadow work. And yeah, it's an extremely hard sell. People run away in knee-jerk reaction, and yet this is where our freedom lies. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to go to break here in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Just so you know.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, it's funny. Once you get to a certain point on the path back out, you sort of realize, well, there's really nothing else to do. I mean, this is...
Okay, let's hold that thought. We're going to break right now. I agree. There is nothing else to do. Stay with us. This is Sienna Leah, and I'm here with David Griffin. We'll be right back. Welcome back for your brave souls that didn't let your implanting knock you out of listening to the second half of the radio show. Good job. David, you still with me?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Can you continue to share what is being deployed against us in spiritual warfare ops?
Okay.
I know it's a huge topic, but we're going to make some headway.
Okay. Well, I guess we have to get back into the construction of the mind a bit, and it being this energetic structure. Now, one of the things that can happen is that the more, now we're talking energy, but it's not physical universe energy, which is simply charged particles whizzing around in space. This energy in your mind is your energy. It's your creation. You're the source of this energy. So it's slightly different than physical universe energy. But what can happen is that this energy can get compacted, sort of like pumping air into a tank. If you've ever been scuba diving, for example, you know how they use a compressor to fill the tanks. And so the same thing can happen with energy. The more energy you try to compact into an area, the more it gets compressed, just like you would compress a gas. And eventually, if it keeps getting compressed more and more, it eventually begins to solidify a bit. It gets more and more dense, more and more solid, and it can actually form very highly charged areas that are very, very dense. And now, for example, anyone who's had a very powerful headache turns on, well, what's happened there is you've got this very dense mass that has suddenly, moved in very close, and it's trying to occupy the same space as your brain, and it doesn't feel very good. It presses on the brain and it presses on the sinuses, and you get this tremendous pressure up there around the head. Well, that's what this is. It's one of these mental masses that sort of moved in. Your attention went on something, and so this mass of energy It's moved in, and it's sitting right there around your head, and it hurts. It can be very, very painful. So,
and this is part of the implanting process, this energy?
Well, yes and no. Right now, I'm just talking about just the mind in general. But what happens in implanting is that even more energy gets shoved in there and compressed and compacted. And what can happen is that the area can get so highly charged it it acts like a repulsion field. Sort of like raising the shields on the Enterprise. It's such a strong energy field that it actually repulses. It pushes you away. Sort of like similar pulls on a magnet. If you try to take two magnets and face the two north poles towards each other, they're going to repel. Well, the same thing happens in the mind. When you get an area that gets too highly charged, it actually repulses you away, pushes you away. And so that's one of the reasons that the implanting works, is they'll shove so much energy in there. Actually, it's your energy, but as an example, when great force is used against a person, typically the natural reaction is to want to resist that. And so you push back with your own energy. So you get two energy streams that are hitting each other head on, and they collide and form this sort of wall of energy. And so that's sort of why implanting works, is it can form these very dense areas within the person's mind that are very, very highly charged. I guess that's the underlying basis of it. And some of these ridges of energy end up actually surrounding you in your space around your body. And these can actually be targeted and hit with psychotronics. If you're familiar with psychotronic RF weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one of them. Okay, that's one of the primary targets that they're hitting with their psychotronics, are some of these ridges of energy that are sitting around you, that are in your space. And they can hit these things and throw them into restimulation. They hit them with a specific frequency, and it causes like a resonance to occur. And so you can be remotely targeted in this manner. And what they're doing is they're hitting stuff in your own mind, which is your own unconscious creation that you're unaware of. So these guys are playing very, very dirty pool, but that's what we're up against.
So wouldn't you say that people that made a thorough investigation of their own selves and shored up all of these ridges and investigated their ego and investigated the places where they're out of sync with natural law, would have a fighting chance, because in some ways they're holding a mirror up to every imperfection within our nature.
In a sense, yes. As a matter of fact, when I get hit now, well, one of the problems they've been having with me for about the past 3 years has been every time they hit something in my space, it sort of lights up, and I go, oh, look at that. And so then I put my attention on it, and then I start discharging the charge from that area. But I'm only able to do that. I've gotten up to the point now where I can perceive the energy ridges and masses, in my space. And this is not something that I came by accident or, in the past couple of years. I mean, it's taken me, close to 30 years of a lot of hard work to get to where I am now. So this
yes,
is...
But we don't want to discourage others, because those of us that have been the trailblazers can reach out and share these techniques, and the next ones coming through are going to be able to do this much more clearly, because you've created that space.
Yeah, and that's why we're here talking right now, is to let people know what they face, and so they can have a little bit quicker and easier time with it than we have.
Yeah, because in some ways, this is a path of perfecting oneself, because the only place you can get it are in the areas that actually we do need to illuminate and to transmute.
As far as what these guys are hitting and targeting, though, it's actually, it almost boils down to basic physics in a sense, in that they're hitting masses of energy. And so the one thing that defeats that is actually discharging that charge. I mean, it's all of that suppressed and compacted charge is the real problem. That's what they're hitting. That's what keeps our awareness and our memory suppressed and our ability suppressed. It's all of this. We've sort of become enclosed in this cocoon of energy, in a sense.
Well, yeah, and also in the patriarchy, they've demonized most of our organic, life-connected energy, and so the suppression of what is natural in the human beingness it creates this huge compression as well. So they made sure that we wouldn't access all of this. I mean,
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, as we really reclaim all the aspects of our being and all the energetics of our being, particularly what we call the feminine, which is our intuition, our emotion, our sensuality, our sexuality, the huge energetic that has been demonized and made evil and wrong. For there was 1,000 years of Holocaust against all things feminine on this planet, and that people are terrified, this is all part of the mind control, to become authentically present with what they are as well. So all of this builds up this charge that can be then implanted and targeted and make them part of this artificial mind control grid where they act out the impulses of the enslavers. And it's very scary because the very things that will set us free have been, we've been mind controlled to think that they're bad and they're wrong and that we shouldn't be feeling them, we shouldn't be experiencing them, and on and on and on.
Yeah, it's all, anytime you heavily invalidate something, such as women have been very, very heavily, and are still to this day in certain cultures, very heavily suppressed. That creates a lot of mental charge, and that just gets built on in the between lives area also. They will take existing, let's say, existing ridges, and they'll build on it. They'll put more charge on top of it. So, but it all boils down to being able to discharge all of this bottled up energy. And typically, a person has to work on the present lifetime first, and they've got to discharge. Typically, a person has to discharge an awful lot of charge from their present lifetime before the area begins opening up enough to where they can start accessing things from previous lifetimes. But ultimately, that's where the source lies, is way, way back in the distant past. And our present lifetime is just the outer layer of the onion, you might say. One of the things that I've had to do, for example, is traumatic incidents will actually link up and change within the mind. And so a lot of times let's say I was working on, I don't remember what I was working on. I think it was probably some past deaths or something, I'm not sure. And so I found my attention was on one particular incident, and so I discharged that. It was like, I got stabbed by a sword or something. And so, okay, there goes the charge from that one. And then all of a sudden I saw it was a different lifetime, and I was kind of skewered with a pike or something, and okay, discharged the charge from that one. And so this went on for a little while, all these various battle injuries and so forth. And then all of a sudden, I got to a certain point, and all of a sudden, this entire chain just started going zip. And, you know, it was like for, I don't know, about 5 or 10 seconds, I was just seeing lifetime after lifetime after lifetime just slipping by very, very rapidly, all these injuries, battle injuries and wounds and so forth. And all of a sudden, that whole chain just erased. It was gone. So all of these things, you know, ultimately you'll get back to a very, very early point, which is, you know, buried in the distant past. But that's how all of this stuff sort of gets linked up in the mind. The mind is this just incredible cross-filing system, I guess you might say, where things are cross-filed and connected, but it's all connected energetically.
Yeah, I often use the image of seaweed. You know, you start pulling it out of the unconscious spaces, and or the suppressed spaces is a better way to put it, because I don't believe we have an unconscious. I think that was a choice and an agreement.
Well, you know, actually, that's not. I was going to say, actually, that's not too far from the truth, though, because quite often, you know, when you start uncovering implanting incidents, you will find a lot of unconsciousness in there. Very, very
well,
heavy.
It is. Well, yeah, it's very heavy unconscious, but this is a separate topic, and I don't want to distract. But we have made the idea in psychology that there is an unconscious. That was a tool. That was a manipulation. It didn't have to be that way. All of that, and now it's changed. Now all of this can be brought into consciousness. Why? Because it's all us. Because it's been dissociated through various techniques and implanting and mind control and social conditioning, does not mean it's really a, you know, like an id and out of control insanity that we all have to guard against through massive system of suppression and control. I mean, there are models of the human psyche that were created by the patriarchy that are completely bogus and frighten people even more. And this is all just our own mind, and it's just a massive, you know, spring cleaning job. And it's a beautiful thing because there's authentic energy. What is in there is the fuel to help us to integrate and to move into higher dimensions of organizational awareness that will allow us to have such a more exciting and dynamic life. The jet fuel, the rocket fuel, is in what we call the unconscious or the shadowland realm. This is what you're talking about, is reclaiming all of that. It's all of ours to reclaim. It is not owned by anyone else. It's just been hijacked.
Yeah, well, it is our own creation. Yeah.
That's the point you're making, and that's a huge point. I think it becomes less scary. I want to know what's in my mind. You know?
Yeah, well, it's, you know, I will tell you that it takes some fortitude, and it takes a bit of being willing to face some scary things sometimes, but ultimately it's stuff that happened in the past, and you just have to raise your level of confront. Be willing to be there and just confront it as like, okay, this happened. Let me look at it. And you know, once you're willing to be there and experience it and look at it, that's what will allow the charge to begin discharging from that area. And
yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, because the whole trauma-based mind control means that we got shut down and dissociated aspects of essentially needed because, for example, and I've worked in the psychological area for 40 years. I used to be a primal therapist, taking people into repressed memories in a complete energetic way and into past lives. And what you find is that the shutdown, this is partly why torture, why they don't just kill you, but they make sure that the charge is so huge, that the fear is so huge, that there is a belief that I can never survive facing that. And if there's a piece of, I can never survive. And that's always the belief. And this is why we're constantly on this knee-jerk reaction to escape from accessing the crucial pieces of our energy that we absolutely need for this, some people call it the ascension process, which is very clever of the dark side to engineer that. It's bogus. And a lot of times these things happen when you were a child and you were so vulnerable, and if you faced the truth of your parents and that they couldn't take care of you, you would have died. So it's all about blocking out things. And but you know, it's all things we can handle, absolutely. And as the new energies coming in, it's not even that difficult, but it always feels like, oh my God, I'm going to die, or I can't do that, or it's just too much. And this is where we are, billions of us are mind controlled to avoid the very energetic encounters that would set us free and into our sovereign selves, because we can't operate until we get our real energy back, because our real energy has a real intelligence. It has a real intuition.
Locked up and insisted in these varied incidents that we're unwilling to face.
There's so much to go into, and I know we've had some fairly long conversations, and that you're very responsible in how you bring your information to people. And I know that you're concerned to give them too much too fast and to trigger these charges and just have people fall off. But perhaps we have about 9 minutes for this first hour. Okay. Could you talk to us a general overview, anything you haven't covered yet, about the Enslaver operatives, the personnel station at every level? We talked about that. How about this? Are the controllers getting a bit frantic to stop certain things now? And what can you tell us here? I mean, that's the good news to me. You know, are we making any impact here? Or are we just...
Well, I in my particular case, they from what I've seen, they certainly seem to be getting a bit more frantic lately in trying to stop me. I would have to assume that there are others that are probably in a similar sort of situation.
Well, I would love you to share, to the extent you're comfortable with, the targeting of you, what they have been doing exactly to you, because this gives us specific things that can mirror in our own reality.
Okay. Well, let's see. Well, I guess, first of all, I guess we've covered some of this already. The fact that, all right, well, last lifetime, I was involved in U.S. military and U.S. intelligence. I started out as a fighter pilot, and then very quickly was recruited into military intelligence because they found out that I had certain perceptions beyond the body senses. And I was recruited into an organization called the Psychor, which is, you know, guys that have psychic abilities, or people that have psychic abilities. I very quickly went into the investigation of extraterrestrial technology also, which was sort of leading that. I still haven't gotten into Roswell yet, but maybe we can cover
we may
after.
have to do that in part 2 to dive into there, because we only have about 6 minutes left in this hour.
Okay. Well, so now I've got all of this experience from last lifetime, but then if I jump back several hundred years, I was in the intelligence service at the sector level. I was born on a different planet, which, by the way, is that planet is really not, the culture there is not at all too dissimilar from what we find here on Earth at the present time. Slightly higher level of technology, but as far as the culture is very, very similar. But they had personnel that have been stationed here on Earth for a very, very long time, thousands of years. Bodies are identical. You can't tell, you know, if you saw somebody from that planet here, you wouldn't know them walking down the street. I might, because I might perceive that, these are Markavian. You know, I might perceive it, but to a typical person, they would not be able to tell. So I was here as part of their intelligence service also. Originally, I joined back there on this other planet. It's called Markab, spelled M-A-R-C-A-B. But then I got transferred here to Earth, and I was working here on Earth. So I have, you know, intelligence from that level as well. And then if I go back quite a bit further, I was in an intelligence, security and intelligence organization back up at the galactic level quite a bit further back. So I've got all of this knowledge, and they have been trying very, very diligently to suppress what I've been, you know, the data that I've been relaying. They don't want people to find out about this. So, yeah, they've tried a number of times to heart attack me. The first time they tried that was back in, I think, about '99.
To heart attack you?
Yeah.
Is that with the weaponry you were talking about?
Yeah, I should probably explain that, because this is a technique that they use for getting rid of people quite frequently. The first time they tried it with me, I had ordered a pizza from a local Italian restaurant there, in, you know, where I was living, and so the delivery guy shows up at the door, and the first thing I noticed was, hey, this isn't my regular delivery guy, but you know. So that was the first thing that caught my attention was, where's the regular guy? And so I got my pizza and I started eating. I noticed by the time I had gotten into the second piece of pizza, I noticed that my heart was just racing. I was like, wow, what the heck is going on here? So I thought, well, I wonder if they put something in the pizza, because there were some things that had been happening before this. They're running psyops on me and all sorts of things that we'll get into another time. But so I started eating the third piece of pizza, and I noticed again, the heart racing seemed to be getting even worse. So I stopped, didn't eat any more pizza, and so I put my attention, kind of scanned my body, and I perceived that there was some chemical in my body that the perception I got was that it was a naturally occurring substance. So if there was an autopsy performed, they would not find any sort of chemicals or drugs or anything like that. It might have just been adrenaline. You know,
we're going to have to continue this next Friday night. I'm here with David Griffin, part 2, next Friday. Come back and hear the rest of the story, people. Thank you, David. Thank you for everything you've lived through and who you are. Take care, everybody. More to come.